Hey friends, this is Mark Suroviec, host of the Workplace Solutions podcast, inviting you to discover the joy of work. All right, we're live. How you feeling today, Teddy?
Feeling pretty good.
Good.
It's been a busy month, but we'll take it. It's finally cool weather. The Georgia Bulldogs are winning. Fall in Rome, Georgia, it's second to none, quite frankly.
How are the kids? How's the fam?
They're good. They're good. We're coming out of the COVID season, which when you have a child who's 3.5 who has COVID, it's not super fun, especially when they're already immunocompromised to begin with. All in all, things are going really well. The last month has gone by incredibly quickly, and we're very grateful for that. We will be moving into a new home here in hopefully two or 3 weeks, and just excited about that, getting to start afresh.
And by the time this episode airs, you might already be in your new home.
Hey, that's the hope. We've been saying that since the end of August.
Okay.
So.
Well, if you are listening and you are one of our loyal podcast listeners, or whatever they call them, people who I convinced should listen, you notice that Rhonda sounds very different today. So I'm here with Teddy Sanders. Teddy, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, my name is Teddy Sanders. I am a talent acquisition specialist for a company called Docebo based in Athens, Georgia. Now, basically what that means is I'm a full cycle recruiter in a multitude of different arenas, hiring people left and right, from sales to support to director level to leadership development consultants, and getting to bring people into positions of success.
Perfect. We're going to be hanging out with Teddy today, and if you were concerned, Rhonda is okay. She is not here, and that's fine. Rhonda loves when we interview other guests, and we're going to try something new that we haven't done yet with the mailbag and answer some questions. But before we do that, let's do an icebreaker question. All right, So Teddy, you're a shoe guy.
Yes.
If you had to design the Teddy, whether Nike or Adidas or somebody gave you billions of dollars to come out with the Teddy shoe, what you got?
Oh, man, that's a good question. So I grew up as a pastor's kid with 0 coin in our pocket. And I remember in 1991 watching Fresh Prince of Bel-Air at somebody else's house, because once again, my dad was a pastor, so no watching TV at all. And falling in love with the Jordan 5, which later became known as this particular colorway, the Fresh Prince.
Okay.
And it was just something that was unusual. It was something that was neat. It was something that caught people's eye very quickly. I would say I would want to combine that with accessibility.
Okay.
I think that shoe manufacturers have done a pretty poor job of giving people who have disabilities the opportunity to wear cool footwear. So I'd give it a fun colorway. I'd give it something that people would talk about, and it was accessible and affordable for folks.
Okay. As I was getting ready for this podcast, I knew I was going to ask Teddy about shoes, which made me very self-conscious with the shoes I was wearing today, because these are the coolest ones I own, and I bought them at Costco.
Hey, 3 stripes for life.
All right. Love it. Love it. Teddy kind of undersold himself. He is one of the most interesting and Renaissance men that I know, has done a lot of different things. Tell me some of those roles and jobs that you've had before you became a talent acquisition ninja.
Well, thank you for the compliment.
Okay.
I can't spell Renaissance, but I appreciate that. I've always been very blessed with a high output of energy and an ease of being bored. I've worked in emergency medicine for the better part of 14 years. So I've done that. I've been a trauma therapist. I have my master's in marriage and family therapy, which I absolutely loved. I've also been a salesperson for learning management solutions and leader and team development. That's where you and I met, as well as probably the biggest calling on my life, not only being a sneakerhead, but being a father to a burgeoning sneakerhead. I have a 3.5-year-old girl named Cora Joy, who is our life, and my spouse, who is a social worker who does forensic therapy and forensic interviewing for kids who have been sexually and physically abused. We just try to be together as much as possible, because a lot of our days can be very heavy from time to time.
I hear that. All right, so let me answer the icebreaker question.
Yeah, same to you.
Oh, absolutely. I would go with a recreation of the Reebok pump that I wore in 8th grade. The one that had the basketball that you would squeeze and pump up.
Yeah, so incidentally, they just reissued those. Yeah.
I just learned more about shoes in the last few minutes than I knew was possible, and we haven't scratched the surface. But today is not about shoes. Today is about our mailbag. If you would like to ask a question on a future episode, you can email me at mark@workplaysolutions.com, or you can see some of the things we do besides the podcast and come serve your team. So, Teddy, what are the rules of the mailbag?
Key points for the mailbag is you have to answer authentically. If you don't know the answer, don't pretend that you do. If you're not comfortable with the question, you have the space to say that and be respected in that decision. Don't throw any person or organization under the bus by name. I think that's very important as we move forward into the knowing others and being known. And no one talks about Fight Club.
Love it. So if you want to take a look at the list of mailbag questions, what's one that jumps out at you want to ask right away?
Yeah, actually, there's one here that really piqued my interest. So tell me about your best boss. What did they do or not do that helped you not only survive, but actually thrive in your role?
Because we believe in thanking people by name, I'm actually going to name this person. That was Ricky Escobar.
Okay.
And love Ricky to death. Just absolutely love him. Wonderful human being. He was my supervisor at a previous organization. And two things that Ricky did that I will never forget. One is that he... I just forgot. Well, I wanted to start with the second one. So two things that Ricky did really, really well. One was he kept the performance goals front and center. So that was something every time we had a one-on-one check-in, we would literally go through my annual goals, which I was being rated on in the annual performance review, and we would look at what progress we've had. And so that was happening at least once a month, it was almost like having 12 mini performance reviews, as opposed to just waiting till the end of the year and finding a whole bunch of surprises.
Sure. Yeah.
And he took really good notes. So when it was time to fill out the performance review document, it was just cut, paste, done. And I'm looking around at some of my colleagues and going, "Oh, you guys aren't done yet?"
Yeah.
But it had information all year as opposed to what we remembered. So that was memorable. And besides just the fact it made that process of the performance review better, it really kept what was important and what was a priority front and center, because a big chunk of my job was doing the 4 or 5 goals that were on that list. So it was about 80% of my role at that time. And so he just kept that front and center. This is important. This is important. This is important. And then the other thing that I really appreciate about Ricky was he was someone that would go to bat for you. So if you had conflict with another person, which happened, I had conflict with one of our staff, and he cared about you as a person and made sure that your interests were represented. And I just remember being so thankful that I had Ricky in my corner, that he wanted to see me thrive. He wanted to see me succeed. And when there was misunderstanding with other coworkers, he made sure he understood what was going on and really helped me through that process. So it was a growing opportunity. I just really appreciate those two things about him.
Yeah. Mind if I ask a follow-up?
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
So with Ricky, you mentioned specifically how defined kind of parameters. You always knew where you stood with that kind of ongoing performance review, as well as he was somebody who would go to bat for you. Was that just naturally what he exuded from day one? Or did that take some time to trust that in him? And if so, how long did it really take you guys?
I think it's ironic because when years before, we actually had a lot of tension. Like, we didn't like each other at all.
Okay.
Frenemies? I don't know what you want to call it. Like, we just...
You went through some stuff.
Yeah, we went through some stuff. And most of that was probably me, honestly.
Admitting it is the first step.
But I really don't remember. I just know that he was very consistent in how he approached that. So it was just this rhythm we got into. And at that point in my career, I was individual contributor that was a full-time person for the first time. And, and I needed some of that direction and structure. Just would be all over the place if I wasn't careful.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that answers your question. That's what I remember.
Does. It sounds like in order to build that kind of camaraderie and that implicit trust, you needed to go through some stuff and kind of be like, hey, you know the good, the bad, and the ugly, and I'm still trusting that you have my best interest.
It makes me think about a blog post that I'm in the process of writing, which is this idea that the only unforgivable sin in management is failing to fight for your people. You can forgive a lot of things.
Yeah.
A lack of understanding or a lack of competence or misunderstanding or not being taught how to manage well. But if you don't fight for your people, man, it's really hard to trust you.
It is.
So
it is. I'd agree with that.
All right. What about you? Tell me about your best boss.
I feel like I've had a lot of great leaders in my life. I probably go back to... Northern California. I'm 19 years old. This is the one that just always clings onto me. Had an instructor in EMS, and they were a first generation pararescue jumper. And so they had seen some stuff and had really wanted to benefit their community with their knowledge. And so this was somebody who would work 48-hour shifts pretty regularly, back to back, go work his farm, and then come back for 48 hours. And the thing that I always loved about him, I'm not going to name him right now just because I don't think he would want me to, knowing his personality.
That's fair. That's fair.
Is that he always had your back no matter what, much like what you're talking with Ricky. This is something where we had life and death circumstances happening around us where you make one comment to a patient that feels like, hey, you're building camaraderie. They take it as insulting, you're sued. That's the easiest thing, let alone something that you did wrong medically leads to something catastrophic for a patient. I remember him walking alongside me after a really, really bad call. And he said, that was a rough one, but just remember, it's not your emergency. So if you're flustered and you are heightened, you're never going to be a valuable asset to the patient. You have to kind of come down and you have to be the expert in the room. And you might not be, but you at least have to exude that from time to time. So I'll always remember that because that was just such a time where I was a gigantic knucklehead, no facial hair, but hair down to my shoulders. So looking like an out of shape Sunshine from Remember the Titans. And just always remembering that, hey, we can get very agitated because we care. We can get very heightened because we want to serve and we want to help. But you have to remember it's not your emergency and to take a step back in order to serve them well.
Wow. I think that's definitely applicable.
Yep, there you go.
Able to be applied, a transferable skill.
Yes.
To a lot of arenas. All right, my turn to pick. Teddy, you recruit talent.
Yes, I do.
Are there trends you're seeing about why people are accepting offers, rejecting them, why they're staying with particular companies or choosing to leave? Kind of what are you noticing? I know what I've been reading, but I want to hear from someone who's speaking to people, trying to get them on board. What's going on?
Yeah, I would love to. I'm actually, in order to answer that question, I'm going to ask you a question.
Okay.
So my assumption is you've heard this tagline, the Great Resignation.
I have.
When you hear that, how does that hit you? What do you think that is, and how do you think that's being shown in the marketplace?
My understanding of the Great Resignation is and feel free to correct me if I'm not giving an accurate representation of how it's portrayed, is that a lot of employees are leaving either unhealthy or toxic environments with their business where they were not treated with dignity and humanity, and they decided they didn't have to put up with it anymore, and it was better for their mental health to do something else or even not work at all until they find the next thing. I guess that's what I've been reading, that it's been a lot about mental health.
Yeah.
It's been a lot about belonging, about fulfillment. I get that because I feel like I'm a part of that group.
Certainly. And then I'll also follow it up with this question. If I were to say the pandemic didn't break anything, it just shined a light and a magnifying glass on what was already broken, would you say that's accurate? Would you say it's inaccurate?
I think it magnified a lot of things. So there were some things that were unique to the pandemic, but in general, it took away some of the margin and some of the buffers. I've had several conversations with folks saying how that community is a buffer that covers a whole lot of dysfunction or bad systems or processes. So if you know that your team cares about you, that your coworkers believe that you are important and worthy of respect, and important's the wrong word, but if you have value and you are in relationship, you are in community, and you can walk over to somebody's desk and ask them a question, you don't have to be a good project manager. You don't have to be good at some of these communication methods or planning or some of those things that get magnified when you're distant, when you're remote. But I think in a lot of organizations, it was already, things are already bad. It's even worse now. So some of the benefit of being in person was gone. And from what I've read, as folks answer that question about why they leave, honestly, sometimes I put on weight during the pandemic and I don't want to buy new pants, which sounds crazy to make your future decision, but it's about your identity. It's about how you feel about yourself. Or I got a dog. What do I do with it now?
Right.
These are real things that no one's ever going to put on a survey as the reason they're not going back.
Right. Oh, I would love to read that survey. Yeah. My dog got fat.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or they're realizing, wow, I don't have to sit in my car for 4 hours because there's not enough episodes of Workplace Solutions podcast to fill up that time in the car.
Yeah, I think it is a thing of the Great Resignation. Organizations that are unwilling to change are getting punched in the mouth with the war on talent. I think the war on talent, the Great Resignation, these are colloquial statements that we have focused on. The reason why I asked you that one question about did it break or did it magnify is because there are organizations who are unwilling to change with the times, who are saying it broke things and we need to fix it. And they're trying to fix the process and the procedure without keeping in mind the people that's going to affect. And so we have to be very conscious and conscientious of the people in everything. The beauty of what I get to do, yes, I get to recruit talent. I get to attract talent. I'm a talent attractor, I guess you could call it. I do have my own gravity field, being 6'5" and looking like baby Hagrid. So that's for sure. But the unique part of my role is across multiple different business units, I get to partner with hiring managers and say, what do you want and what do you need? So pre-pandemic, we were globally about 300 employees. We just hired 742.
Woo.
So yeah, it's growth opportunity is there.
Y'all need some team building?
Do we ever? Yes.
Let's talk after the podcast.
That's right. I'll get your card. But it is that thing of people are seeing opportunity right now. And I think especially in our industry, software as a service, and a plethora of other acronyms that I was going to say, and I was like, I don't know what they actually mean, so I'm not going to say.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
But because of those, people are seeing, oh, wow, there's another opportunity. Maybe I don't have to live in San Francisco and pay $5,000 a month for a one-bedroom apartment. Maybe I can go back and live in Bozeman, Montana. As long as Starlink's working their internet, we can make that work, kind of thing. As well as still keeping that community. How do you have a tight-knit, distant workforce that's being brought together? I would also say that the other end of that spectrum is there's a lot of the grass is greener going on. And we have to remember the grass is never greener. You're just catching a very specific moment of light in that time. And it is like work is hard right now because you have so many competing hands pulling in different directions. And you want to serve, you want to have those opportunities. I've been in my role for a little bit over 6 months, and I've hired almost 70 people by myself. I didn't know if that was a lot or anything, but as I've
sounds like a lot to me.
I know. I was like, okay, cool.
I've hired one.
There you go.
And it's me.
Yeah. So it's a unique place to be. I think it's also showing me what are we doing not only to attract talent, but what are we doing to retain talent at the same time? Because as a manager, much like go back to your story with Ricky, because you guys had those ongoing sessions, he probably knew your professional and your personal health at the same time. And it's amazing to see managers, not just in my organization, but across a multitude of them, when somebody says, hey, I'm handing in my 2 weeks, and they're just dumbfounded. They're like, how is that possible? You're healthy. You're making so much money. You're doing this. And it's like, right, but I'm not challenged. And we've talked about that, and it's just been kind of kicked down the road. So
that's really insightful. I think I've sort of answered the question as best as I am able to in my own. So.
Yes.
So I hope I'm not skirting out on my own rules of the mailbag.
No, that's fine. You recruited yourself very well.
Yes.
You know? So I'm actually going to pick my own question.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
That is on the list. I put that. What is a question that I didn't ask you that you wanted to answer?
So this is how I tend to end most interviews with people. You know, you want to understand, are they capable? Are they qualified? Are they competitive? And then you also want to know, what about the culture? Can they subsist here? You know, we feel like the Wild Wild West some days, and not even like old school, more like Will Smith and like Kevin Kline, Wild Wild West, you know, where it's just like, is this a bad steampunk like novel gone wrong?
It's not a great movie.
No, it's not. It doesn't hold up well over time.
Well, it wasn't great then, which doesn't help.
That is true. So my question for you is, what is one thing that most people don't know about Mark that you wish more people knew about?
Oh, man. I don't know, because I think I have the world's worst poker face. You can usually know what's going on with me.
Sure.
I'm always surprised when folks find me intimidating.
Okay.
And I just like, well, why? And I forget, like, not everyone is ultra candid, and not everyone speaks in hyperbole. And
sure.
I've had this experience several times, and I've chatted with folks different over the years where they saw that side of me and thought that was all there was. And then we'd get to talking about what my experience was like being a foster parent, or my faith journey as a follower of Jesus, or kind of my heart for teaching and helping people. And they see this, oh, he cares.
Yeah.
And yes, I'm intense, and yes, I get very focused on the task. If I'm not careful. Yeah, I get over focused on the task sometimes, and just saying, hey, there is this softer side that genuinely cares for people, because sometimes in the moment, especially at work, I didn't always let that out.
Sure.
And I think that's when I really earned the trust of some of my colleagues in some of those moments where they're like, oh, you're you're a person.
Yeah. What a novel concept.
You know, oh, you have feelings. Oh.
Yeah.
I think that's probably it, that I'm probably way more sensitive and emotional than caring than I sometimes like to show. What about you? What's something that folks don't know? What was the question? What folks don't know that they should know that they don't know?
What's something that most people don't know about you that you wish more people knew? For me, I would say it's very easy for me in a group setting, especially in the workplace, to kind of become the chameleon. I'll form into whatever you need. If you need the funny guy, if you need the stern guy, if you need, I'm a walking trope of like 90s sitcoms. Like I will fulfill whatever you need in that. But that's not the place I want to be. Like I want to find my 2 or 3 people, and I want to go deep, and I want to be known. I think when I moved into this role, my boss at the time, she looked at me and she said, "What's like your mission statement for this role?" And I was like, "Don't get fired." Like that's my main one. I've got a small child.
You need people. You need people. I need to eat.
Yeah, it's a win-win. And she was like, "No, like what is the thing that you feel incredibly, if you come up with a statement and it just tugs on your heartstrings?" And I said, "I want to work for a place where people are known, people are cared for, and people are valued." And that's the beautiful part about it. Reading Creativity Inc. by Ed Catmull, one of the founders of Pixar, he talks a lot about that in conjunction with radical candor. And hey, you can still be open and honest and still have those things. Those are harder moments because people don't want to be told when they're wrong. But that's still the beauty of that growth opportunity. So I want to be as candorish. What's the adjective for candor?
Full of candor?
There you go.
Candorful?
Yeah.
Let's make up some new words.
Yeah. I want to be some sort of faction and divergent, taking it back to the YA life. I want that.
We're going to end part 1 of this episode with my special guest, Teddy Sanders. And we'll go right into recording part 2.
Sounds good. JD goes, "Nobody cares, Sean. Nobody cares."